Hi, boys and girls. This week we are starting a new story called Tops and Bottoms. And with this story, we have a skill that we need to focus on. And our skill this week is author's purpose. This is a skill we have already talked about in a previous story. So you guys are really good at this already. So we are going to be talking about the skill author's purpose. Before we begin this lesson, I would like you to go get a few items. You will need your reading textbook, page 305. You will need a pencil and a blank scrap piece of paper. So go ahead and pause the video and get those items for me. Okay, so our skill this week is author's purpose. Remember, when we talk about a skill, we know it's important to really focus and pay attention because this skill is going to be on our test when we take our test. So, author's purpose. Whenever I think of the words author's purpose, I always think of pie. Authors love to eat pie. Well, what is author's purpose? I said they like pie. Well, if you remember from learning this in a previous lesson, we know that when an author writes a story, they have to have a purpose behind it. They have to have a reason why they're writing the story. So that's what author's purpose is. The author's purpose is the reason why an author writes something. So when I think of pie, I cut the pie into 3 pieces. The P stands for persuade, the I stands for inform, and the E stands for entertain. So let's take a closer look at each one of those pieces. The first one, persuade. When I think of persuade, I think of someone trying to convince someone to do something or to believe something. Maybe believe a topic or a point of view, okay? So you're trying to convince someone of something, persuade them to do something, persuade them to feel the way that you feel. So if you look at this picture, it's a picture of a girl selling lemonade, and she has a speech bubble right here, and it says, "You have to try my lemonade." Well, this girl is selling lemonade. She's trying to persuade you to try her lemonade. She's saying, come on, come over and try my lemonade. It's so good. The best lemonade you've ever had. She's trying to persuade you to buy it. Now, if I think about other places where I think of persuade, you might see persuade in cartoons. You might see persuade in newspapers. Where else might you see someone persuade you to buy something? If you said the TV, you're exactly right. Commercials. When you're sitting down watching TV or even YouTube, you might have an ad or a commercial pop up. Those commercials are trying to get you to buy their product, trying to get you to feel the way that they feel, okay, about a product or something. So I'm sure you saw a lot of ads or a lot of commercials, especially around Christmas time. Did you see those commercials pop up and you were thinking, oh man, I would love to have that? I know when I was at home, even over Christmas break, and my kids were watching TV and a commercial would pop up, my youngest daughter would say, oh, I need that My Little Pony, or oh, I need that baby doll. Can I please have it, Mom? That's so awesome. That commercial was trying to persuade that child to buy that product, or for that child to go try to persuade her parents into buying that product. So persuade is to try to convince someone to do something or to believe a point of view. Some of you might try to persuade your friends to go play a game, okay, at recess. So that's what persuade means. When I think of inform, inform means it's going to give us information, okay? It's going to give us true facts about something. It's going to teach us, it's going to give us information about a specific topic. If I think about our story we've already read called Penguin Chick, that story, the author wrote that story to inform us. It talked to us and taught us about how a penguin starts as an egg and how it grows up to be an adult. It gave us everything that baby chick went through. So that author was trying to teach us something about a penguin chick. So it was giving us information. Now, I'm sure that your teachers talked about Martin Luther King. A lot of his stuff, all of his stuff, is to inform us. It's to give us true information, excuse me, about who Martin Luther King Jr. was. So it's true facts, it's true information. And the last one we're going to talk about is to entertain. When we think about entertaining, we think about someone providing enjoyment. So if I think of a book, I think of it might be maybe Captain Underpants or Dogman or Amelia Bedelia. Those are all stories where the author wants to entertain you. Entertaining might be laughing, it might be crying, okay? It might be serious or intense. It might be mysterious. So entertaining provides enjoyment. It's kind of like you don't want to put the book down because you're loving the book so much. So when you think of author's purpose, the author has to have a reason as to why they're writing their story. Think of pie. Authors love pie. Persuade, inform, entertain. Okay, boys and girls, I need you to open your books to page 305. So go ahead and open your books to page 305. Before we begin reading, I want you to think about what we're going to be reading about. Let's take predictions. So if I look at my title, whenever I begin to read a book, I read my title. Sometimes people look at the title to see if they would be even interested in reading the story. So our story is titled Salsa Garden. So good readers can make predictions about what that story is going to be about. So make a prediction. What do you think, without even reading the story yet, what do you think Salsa Garden is going to be about? Well, salsa, I think of like tacos or nacho chips. Okay, garden, I think of someone gardening outside in the summer. They might have a garden where they plant things. So salsa garden. All right, and if I look at my picture, I see a picture of a bowl of salsa. And I see some vegetables over here. So what do you think that story is going to be about? Well, make a prediction. Set a purpose before you read. Okay, so maybe the story is going to be about how someone makes salsa, or maybe how someone grows these vegetables in their garden. Remember, when you make a prediction, there's really no right or wrong answers. You're just taking a guess based on the title. So I'm going to read you the story, and as I read you the story, I want you to think about the author's purpose. I want you to think about why you think this author wrote the story titled Salsa Garden. Think of the pie. Do you think the author wrote this story to persuade, to inform, or to entertain? All right, here we go. Please make sure you're following along. David saw the sign his father put on the garden fence. It said, Salsa Garden. Salsa? David read aloud. Can you grow salsa? What do you think about that, boys and girls? Are you thinking, can you grow salsa? Dad replied, just watch and see what comes up. Each time, David helped by watering and pulling weeds. He looked at the green plants. I have to pause for a minute, boys and girls. My light's off. Okay, I'm going to start at this paragraph again. I apologize. Each time David helped by watering and pulling weeds. He looked at the green plants. They all looked different. Not one looked like Salsa. Finally, harvest time came. What is harvest time? Do you know what that is? If we're talking about gardening and you're unsure about what harvest time is, what do you think harvest time is? Well, if you don't know, keep reading and let's figure out if we can figure out the answer. First, Dad dug in the ground and pulled out round white things that looked a lot like onions. Then he pulled off pods hanging from a plant. They looked a lot like hot peppers. Next, he cut a green leafy plant that smelled spicy. Finally, Dad pulled round red balls from a fat vine. They sure looked a lot like tomatoes. I'm going to stop there for a minute. Did you figure out what harvest time was? Yeah, harvest time, boys and girls, is when your plants are ready to be picked or pulled and ready to be eaten. So that's what harvest time is. Where's the salsa, Dad? David asked as he followed his father to the kitchen. Dad washed and cut everything up. He dumped his harvest into a machine with a sharp blade and turned it on. When he opened the lid, it was full of salsa. Okay, boys and girls. So we talked about the title of our story, Salsa Garden, and I just read you the story. So were your predictions correct? When you made a prediction about what you thought the story was going to be about, were you right? Okay, some of you might have been right, maybe some of you weren't, but that's okay. We have to figure out why you think the author wrote the story. Well, I found it quite interesting that David, the boy, thought that you could just grow salsa in a garden. Was that true? After the harvest time, he said, David, where's the salsa, Dad? Can you make salsa just from a garden? When you pick those harvests, does that automatically become salsa? Or did Dad have to do some other things for him to create salsa? Okay, let's go ahead and fill out a paper. Now, if you're at home, you probably do not have this paper, and that is quite all right. You're just going to use your blank piece of paper, and you can write number 1. And you don't even have to write the question. You can just write what it is: persuade, inform, or entertain. So our question number 1 says, what was the author's purpose for writing this story? So let's talk about each one before we make our final decision. Now, if I look at persuade, when I think of author's purpose, remember, you think of pie. You think of pie, okay? Persuade. What do you think the author is trying to do? When we think of persuade, did the author try to convince us of something? Did the author try to convince us to do something or to believe something? I don't think so. I never heard the author in the story say, oh, please do this, go out and do this now, or buy this salsa. So the author wasn't trying to persuade us to do anything. So I don't believe it is persuade. What about inform, boys and girls? Inform. Did the author write this story to inform us? Did the author give us true information? Well, actually, the author did give us information about how to grow things in the garden and how to make salsa. It told us actually in sequence. I see these sequencing words: first, then, next, and finally. So it did give us information, but boys and girls, did it give us everything? Did it talk about how to put the seeds in the soil, how long they take to grow, how often to water them? Did it give us all that specific information? Did it say anything else besides putting stuff in a machine and turning it on and then we have salsa? It really didn't. So although I feel like the author was giving us some information, I don't believe that the whole story, the author's purpose for writing this story, was to inform us. Now let's look at entertain. Well, I know that entertaining has a lot to do with fiction books. And I know that entertaining has to do with characters, setting. I do know that. And I do know that entertaining makes us have some enjoyment. And I did kind of laugh a little bit when it says, "Where's the salsa, Dad?" And I'm thinking because after harvest time, the boy David thought that there was just going to be salsa automatically. So it did kind of make me chuckle a little bit. So yeah, this story, boys and girls, is to entertain. It's to entertain because it's telling us and entertaining about Dad's salsa garden. So I'm going to choose entertain. It's telling us a story about a dad and his son, and his dad teaching him about a salsa garden. It's a good story. It's an entertaining story. It's an enjoying story. So go ahead and write entertain if you are at home. Number 2 says, what evidence from the story tells you the purpose for writing this story? Give 2 things. So when I think about evidence, boys and girls, I think that I have to prove why we chose entertain. So when you think of evidence, you have to prove in the story why you chose that specific purpose. Well, we chose entertain. So when you choose your purpose, you have to be able to back it up. You have to be able to tell why you chose that from information in your story. Well, boys and girls, if I think about the salsa garden and I think about entertaining, okay, I told you that I chuckled a little bit where David said, "Where's the salsa, Dad?" So I could say and put evidence in my story about that specific part. Where's the salsa, Dad? Now, I could say, and I'm going to put quotation marks because that is a specific part in the story. Where's the salsa, Dad? Okay. And then I'm going to have to explain myself. Okay. I'm going to have to explain why I wrote, "Where's the salsa, Dad?" And I can put David thought that after picking his vegetables, he would have salsa. Okay. Where's the salsa, Dad? So David thought after picking his vegetables, he would have salsa. That's entertaining because we know, boys and girls, when you pick vegetables, that just doesn't magically become salsa. You have to mix it together and put some spices in there to make it salsa. So that shows some entertaining. That shows that I laughed a little bit, and that is just one specific piece of evidence that I found. Okay? Now, Your choices might be different than mine. And that is perfectly fine as long as you can prove why. Okay, as long as you can prove why. Now, I will tell you, when you have an author's purpose where it's entertain, sometimes it might be hard to pull out specific evidence. Because when an author entertains you, okay, they're entertaining you, they want you to have feelings about what you're reading, okay? They want you to express different emotions while you're reading. So sometimes there's not necessarily a specific saying that might pull you to entertain, but overall it's a feeling that you get, okay? Now, what could be another piece of evidence? What could be another piece of evidence? Okay, you could have something as, can you grow salsa? Well, the boy didn't know. Can you grow salsa? So that could be another piece of evidence. Or, I thought, when he opened the lid, it was full of salsa. And I see that's an exclamation point. So I know that David is so excited about what they just created together. His dad and him, he thought it was pretty awesome that he was able to do this with his dad and learn about how they made salsa. Because remember, he actually thought after they picked it, it was salsa. So did his dad teach his son something? Absolutely. So I'm going to put this last sentence because I like that last sentence. When he opened the lid, it was full of salsa. So when he opened the lid, it was full of salsa with that exclamation point. And I want to say why I chose that. I want to say why I chose that. I chose that because the son is showing how he is excited about how he learned to make salsa. So I'm going to put David is excited that he made salsa. So when he opened the lid, it was full of salsa. David is excited that he made salsa. So go ahead and write those two things down, boys and girls. Now, like I said before, there's other things in that story that you could have chose, which is perfectly fine. But you have to be able to tell why. Why did you choose that specific wording from the story? Okay, so evidence from the story on why it's entertaining. Well, we picked Where's the Salsa, Dad? And then I explained it. David thought that after picking his vegetables, he would have salsa. Or when he opened the lid, it was full of salsa. I know that David was excited that he made the salsa. And I know this story is entertaining. It's about a father and a son doing something fun together, which is growing the vegetables and making salsa. Okay, when you have that finished, go ahead and look at number 3. Who were the main characters? Well, who were the main characters in our story? I know that we talked about 2 of them. We read about 2 of them. Good, we have David. And who else? Did they give another name? They did not give another name. Let's see, my lights went off again. There we go. Not sure why that's happening. Okay, they did not give a name, but it was David's father. So we can write David's or David's dad. They called him dad. David's dad. So we have David and David's dad. And what was the setting of the story? Well, where did this story take place? If we're talking about a salsa garden, do you think, oh, my goodness, I don't know why this is happening. Sorry, boys and girls. When we talked about setting, the setting is where and when the story took place. Now, did the story take place in a mall? No. Did the story take place at McDonald's? No. Okay, where was the setting? Where did the story take place? Yeah, at David's house. At David's house. The story took place at David's house. You can even get more. Oh my goodness. 1 second, boys and girls. You can even get more specific. You could say outside at the garden. And it said in the kitchen. And in the kitchen. So David's house, outside at the garden and in the kitchen, because it specifically said that they went into the kitchen to mix up the vegetables. And we know that it's probably summer because when you grow vegetables, well, in Ohio, you can't grow vegetables in the winter, so we know it has to be hot outside. So you could add that as well if you wanted to. You could say that it has to be hot outside, right? It has to have the right temperature in order for you to grow your vegetables. Okay, boys and girls, so that was author's purpose. Remember, when you think of author's purpose, it's why the author writes the story. The author has a reason as to why they are writing something. They want the reader to understand something. They want the reader to persuade to get something or to believe in something, or simply they just want the reader to enjoy the book. So persuade, inform, entertain. It is pie. Persuade, inform, entertain. Great job, boys and girls.